We have seen how to record macros, we have seen some simple macro techniques. It's time to see the proper way on how to launch our macros. Welcome to KISS Excel VBA, where we hope to inspire you to create your own Excel-based applications. You can have the VBA code saved in your workbook and launch the macros with a button located in your sheet, like I did just now. But sometimes your code is more generic and it can be used in many situations and in multiple workbooks. It may be the case that you want to store it somewhere other than the file itself. For example, you have an extract from a system and another file that has the code that would make this extract into a beautiful report. How can we do this? In this video, we will visually explain what is an add-in, how forms work and what is their usefulness, how to launch a form, how to run macros from forms, how to launch a form from a form, how to launch a form from a form that is not in the same file. It's all very exciting stuff. And at the end, I'll tell you a cool little trick that you can get your add-in launched when Excel opens, even if you have it stored in the cloud. Let's get started. Each Excel file has a front end, the sheets with the grids that we all know and love, but also has back-end VBA. Say we have 4 files now, all with their set or VBA code. Let's make the top file an add-in, which basically means that the front end is hidden, as simple as that. And of course, this is for illustration purposes. You only get one VBA window. Forms provide a front end to the user on top of the active book and can be added to Excel file and Excel add-ins. So let's create an add-in and store code into it. Then we will create forms that will allow the user to run the code. And so I create a new book, and in this book I create a simple message box macro, and I save as .xlm. Notice that it takes me directly into the add-ins folder. This folder is like the proper place to store your add-ins. Once you save your add-ins there, you can go to Excel options, add-ins, Excel add-ins and go, and the file will be listed there. You can tick it on if you want your add-in file to start automatically when Excel opens. But I want the add-in stored in the cloud, Dropbox in my case, so that changes are uploaded and the file is available in all my PCs. So let's go ahead and store that into Dropbox. Let's resize the windows and we close book 2. We don't need that anymore. And I open the add-in I just saved. There is no Excel front end, but there is a project my add-in, so we understand that the file is open. We have now saved our add-in file and created a module with some basic code into it. Let's create a form. With this toolbox we can add various controls like buttons and option boxes and tick boxes into the form, but let's see how we launch the form in the first place. I go to the user form and I hit play. Just like we do with a macro, we can push the play button and the user form will appear in Excel. Notice that I cannot work with Excel while this form is up. I can have the exact same effect if I have a macro. I'm using the name of the form dot show. Let's run that. And we have the exact same effect. I still cannot work on Excel. To solve this, I will add here modless. Let's see that now. Same effect, but now I can work on the backend Excel. It's important to understand that when we double-click a module, one window pops up with the code contained in the module. But when a form is double-clicked, the window with the layout of the form is displayed. We can go to the code of the form by double-clicking anything on the form. Each form has two components, meaning two windows, one for the layout and one for the storing of the code on the form. There are the two windows, the design form and the code window. So what we can do here with this toolbox, and if this is not visible, you can go to the view and select to view it. We can add a button, and we can double click that button, and that will create the sub and end sub lines, and we can have our code right in there. And we can now go to the modeless macro and launch the form and test the button. Bye. What we can also do is call the macro that we have here, and that will work also. I go to the modeless, I play the form, and now it will display hello because it went to module 1 and read the test macro. Forms and modules communicate. Whether you want your code to reside into the code of the form or in a module, it's up to you and your project architecture. Let's now create a second form and have the one call the other. So let's create a button on this form, and we'll double click it to reveal the code. And we also need another modeless macro. This is show form 1, and we need show form 2, and on the name user form 2. So we have show form 1 in our user form 2 button, and on the user form 1 we have show form 2. So let's test, and we can see that user form 1 calls user form 2, and user form 2 calls user form 1. We can also hide the initial form once we display the second form, and this is done by writing me.hide in both buttons. So when we push it, it will display the second form, but it will hide user form 1. Let's say now that user form 2 was on a different file, and so I have my book 3 and I transfer user form 2, and there I have user form 2, and I will save this file. We have a form in our book 3. Now we need a module in book 3 to enter a modeless macro so that we can call this form. So I have created a new module, cut and paste the macro show form 2, which is the modeless macro we created earlier. This is the macro that we'll need to call from our add-in. Now we need a macro in our add-in that will call the macro show form 2, which, remember, now is on our book 3. So call external form because it's on a different file, and I'll type application run quotes apostrophe name of the book and the extension apostrophe exclamation name of the macro and quotes. If you think this syntax or any syntax is a bit complex and it is something that you will not be able to remember, all you have to do is just save your add-in for future reference, and this macro will be there for you to copy and paste to other projects. You don't need to remember anything. So let's test that. Hooray! We have successfully launched user form 2 on book 3 from our add-in. This will only run because file book is already open. Let's add some code that will allow us to run the form on book 3 and run in both cases, if open or closed. And so here we say line 1, WB is the word for our variable and we want it to hold a workbook name in it. For line 2 we'll cover errors in a later video. So on line 3 we say look into open workbooks for book 3, and if you find book 3 then WB is book 3. So the only way WB is empty is if book 3 is closed. If this is the case, we want to redefine WB to be workbooks.open. And then it runs the macro application.run show form 2. Okay, let's test this now. And I have my book 3 open, and I can call the form from my add-in user form 2. Let's close book 3 and test that again. So book 3 is not open. Call external form. Book 3 opens and user form 2 is shown. How can we make our add-in open when Excel opens? Previously I saved the add-in to my Dropbox and not the predetermined folder path. And so if I go to Excel options, add-ins, the add-in is not displayed there. So there is no option to open my add-in when Excel opens with this way. So what I can do is I can take the path that the add-ins are stored, copy and paste, and further down I see an Excel folder and there an Excel start folder. This is a very special folder that opens anything in it when Excel opens. And unlike the add-ins, you can put shortcuts here and that will open the original file. If I close Excel and open it again, my add-in will be there. My add-in is opened automatically. So today we saw what is an Excel add-in, how forms work and what's their usefulness, how to launch a form, how to launch macros from forms, how to launch a form from a form, and how to launch a form from a form that is not in the same file. And we also saw how to get your add-in launched when Excel opens. In the next video we see the first module of the macro bank, which explains objects in the simplest way possible. Thank you very much for watching. Please subscribe if you feel I've earned it, and remember to always keep it super simple.